Welcome to the Vocal Lab podcast with your hosts Shelby Rollins and Jason Catrone, bringing you the best from the music industry. Get ready for first-class conversations packed with exclusive techniques and transformative insights, all designed to help you reach your top note. Hey everyone, welcome to the Vocal Lab podcast. I'm Jason Catrone.
And I'm Shelby Rollins.
And we're back for another great episode. Excited about this one personally because one of my closest friends is with us today. Shelby, you met recently at a wedding.
Yes.
For an artist that said individual and I have worked with quite a bit, quite extensively. Great little wedding here in Tennessee a couple weeks ago. But please welcome to the show today, Kipp Williams, none other, amazing songwriter, producer.
I want to cue an applause track.
Yeah, I know we should have I don't know, something. But Kipp, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here.
Kipp, if there's anyone who should be on a podcast or have a podcast, you guys, it's this guy.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
I learned that, though, like within the first 5 minutes of talking to you, I was like, wow, you know a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah, I've always been into facts. Just like the first 5 pages of a Men's Health magazine with all that. That was always my favorite. I don't know. I just
the stuff that most of us skip.
I like stuff that's just fun to remember, which I actually find out a lot of people don't even do.
They don't.
It's like the amount of disappointed conversations I have is like,
yeah.
And I feel weird.
Yeah.
Like I do. I feel weird. I think I feel weird more and more because the way I grew up was in the Deep South where everything was in real life. Everything's in reality. So what I mean by that is when you grow up, I grew up on the South Carolina border between Augusta and Savannah and what they call the Low Country. Mm-hmm. The closest city I was near was...
Get some of them shrimps.
Yeah, Savannah. My grandmother grew up, lived on an island, Tybee Island there, and all my family lived there. So growing up like in a rural place with, 4,000 people, the internet was slow to get there. Everything happens later,
Yeah.
Everything's in real life. Like you go to church with people in real life. You go to football games in real life.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time outside fishing and hunting, and everything's in reality. In reality, there's an immense amount of variability. So whether it's seasons with fish and wildlife or game, or just the fact that, you went to church on a Sunday and you're a Baptist and who knew like somebody was caught drinking. And now there's some people that are upset about that. And now that's a whole new,
And everybody talking about it.
There's a whole new butterfly effect to that thing. So people will say, a lot of stories I get into, they're like, man, is that real? Kind of like Theo Von. If you ever listen to that podcast, people are like, man, that sounds a lot like what Theo Von would be talking about. Yeah, because when you live in real life, things happen.
Yeah.
What's really bad now is nothing is variable. People go on Instagram or they play video games or anything on a screen is against variability. There's no variability. It's programmed to do exactly what it's supposed to do every single time. And I think it's creating extremely boring people. Very boring. You can be highly interested into what you like, but that means you're boring.
Yeah, that's true.
And when you grow up or just travel the world and you do things in real life, that makes your life way more interesting.
Yeah.
And
boring people create boring art.
And
relationship.
And right
everything.
now, media, entertainment, art in America is boring.
Yeah.
It's boring.
It's like everything new happened in the 80s and I was a kid, we were growing up in the 90s, you're watching all this stuff. Everything now is a franchise of a thing that's in the past, and in music you're seeing insane flips, like what they call you'll take a old song and sample it and make it a new thing, like Super Freaky Girl or something like that but you're like, why is that rampant? Because no one's doing anything new. And then if you listen to a lot of what's trending, it sounds like a thing that was a thing on the internet. It's kind of a thing I think we're trapped in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear that just basically comes from that. But flip side of it is that the premium is on live things.
Right.
Like if you're a live musician and you go and play a show and your string breaks, that moment is like that. Remember when we were at that show?
Right.
And remember when it happened? I think people are going to want more moments like that.
I agree with you.
I'm seeing it now, like with a lot of, it's just like there's the perception of things and the reality of things. So like
Yeah.
on TikTok, you might have a lot of people that follow a TikToker. That's not real.
Right.
You're real on the internet. But I know people that I applaud all the time that are ridiculed for being live musicians, and maybe they play some B market to 300 people. They're actually creating real life moments that spread in reality.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they're actually getting their chops up. They're learning how to play live.
Absolutely.
They're actually becoming something. They're actually making real money because, yeah, you might be an influencer and you make money, but it'll be anything but music. So the people I
Yeah.
think right now are investing in live moments or things that are like real, they are the ones that win.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think, and to your point, we're going to crave it more and more as time goes on.
Those are the real metrics. It's not the
Yeah.
likes and the follows and all that kind of stuff. It's vanity. It's
No.
vanity metrics. But the real metrics are what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like it's so funny to me. I think the funniest thing about my career, I'm a producer and a songwriter.
Yeah,
I know,
and-
we
and in
didn't
that-
get the
I know,
chance to
we
say
don't-
that. That was
in-
the best intro, I think, by
totally.
the way. I
It
don't
was
know how
fantastic.
many, the last 5 minutes of
Yeah.
you just riffing after we were like,
told you
this
this
is
was gonna be
Kipp.
good.
And it was
Yeah.
like, boom, here we go.
Let him out of the gate.
This is so good.
In what you're getting ready to say, also give a little backstory on your whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like I am a producer and a songwriter. I am signed to Prescription Songs in Nashville. I moved here. Long story short, I really wasn't allowed to listen to music as a kid at all. It was the devil. Even if it was Christian music and they had tattoos, it was the devil. It was the devil. So
No POD in your household?
yeah,
You remember that band?
no, like
Speaking of, I told Shelby last night I was at the factory downtown Franklin
Yeah.
for a little coffee meeting, and Striper was doing a show down there.
Amazing.
Like I didn't know they were still around and alive.
Look, man, those guys make the money. Those
Yeah.
people, those legacy artists,
know.
like people like that's what real
People are lined up.
Oh, I know somebody who was absolutely at that show.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I always wanted to do it. I always wanted to be in music, but I had to basically go to college, graduate, and start,
And you went to school to be a speechwriter? Is that right? Is
I
that
went
what you
to
wanted to do?
school to be a speechwriter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It started in political science and I switched to rhetoric and persuasion and that to be a speechwriter, but
Where'd you go to school?
Sanford University
Oh,
in
yeah.
Birmingham.
My niece is about to go there.
It's a beautiful place.
It does look very beautiful. My cousin also went to Sanford.
It's a safe place to send your young
safe
lady
for
to
the
school,
whole
which
family.
is what
That's
it felt
good.
like.
That's
It was
good.
like
Yeah.
Her parents will be glad to know.
if you couldn't get a girlfriend there, you were just dumb. I mean, it's like it was just kind of this weird. I'm like, I see why. It's like a very nice place. It's safe. It's beautiful.
Don't they say about that's one of the schools they say you go to get your Mrs. degree?
MRS degree. Yeah.
MRS, yeah.
MRS.
And I went there, and when I graduated, I got a real job at an adventure travel company, and I built my band while I should have been working. But that was the days of MySpace, and I was in a
Yes.
band that was in the scene.
I miss MySpace.
I think it was the best thing
Yeah,
for
it was
musicians.
definitely the best.
Because you went there, it was all geared towards musicians.
Yeah.
And it was like it had all of it combined. Like it actually had numbers so that
Mm-hmm.
the industry people could see what was really happening. I guess there was a lot of faking it, but like it was really good for musicians.
And it felt really exploratory, where today, like, I just go on social media, it's just like I'm just consuming or wasting time.
It's true.
I think
Right.
they tell you what you should already like.
Yeah, exactly.
Where
Yeah.
there it was like, it was sort of by association, like a band would follow another band or they'd be
Yeah.
on their top friends. And that would be like how you would share.
Yeah.
Like you would put your band's friends.
Your top 8.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
It was always a big deal if you weren't in someone's top.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a thing too.
It would. I don't understand how it just disappeared so
I don't
quick.
either.
I don't
they
either.
tried to bring it back. Timberlake bought it.
Timberlake bought it. He did,
I went to a
yeah.
big launch party in LA at the El Rey to relaunch it.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
And everyone was so excited. It was packed out, and then nothing ever happened.
I want to buy it. Let the world know. I would like to rebuy MySpace and bring it back.
Put the offer out there.
I think for music, it
Give you
would
a
probably
couple
be a
thousand.
really wise thing.
Yeah. So
Okay,
you built your band on MySpace.
Yeah.
MySpace.
Did that. Did the scene. That was like meaning like straightened hair and skinny jeans and all age clubs where you would fight to be in the middle spot, not the end.
Yeah.
Because all the parents would come pick their kids up at 9 and you didn't want to be last. Just totally a weird thing, but kind of made some friends from Nashville. And
Were you here then?
no, I
Did
was
you
in
move here?
Birmingham.
Oh,
I was in
okay.
Birmingham. And then when you just kind of saw that Birmingham was not the spot to be in, we had more friends from Nashville. Like this was a right move to make. Made the move up here. And when I got to Nashville, I saw like, wow, you can have other jobs in music besides being in a band. And I hated being in a band.
Really?
I hated it, man. Like in every band, you're going to find like one or two people who kind of pull the weight, and the other guys who are just like, I don't know, like, what are we doing? And they're nice and they're fun, but like you kind of find in every group or organization the real workers and like the real people, and it's really kind of impossible to pull all of that.
Yeah.
Plus, when I got here, I was just so burnt from being in a band. I quit it. I was like, I really loved being in Nashville because it's nice to be around people who get what you're doing. Where if you're living someplace where that's an anomaly, people are like always ask you like, how's that music thing?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. True.
And that's
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah.
word does something. It's like
Yeah.
a qualifier, and you never say it like, how's the bank thing or how's the lawyer thing?
That
And
doctor
That's
thing.
so
doctor
true.
thing. And you're like,
I'm gonna start using that though. How's your yeah?
is so great.
how's your finance
I got
thing?
that from my
Yeah.
small town, supporters.
I'm definitely gonna start
nice,
using that.
The nice
Yeah.
church people.
Let's just flip
Yep.
it on people.
Let's do it.
Which is
good.
so
That's
totally
good.
stupid because like if you're going to start a business, like which is what every artist or producer or songwriter is, it's a startup business. It's
Yeah.
a entrepreneurial thing. Like you don't actually go $3 million in debt and have to wait 3 years to make a profit like a restaurant, but no one goes, how's the restaurant thing?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's art. I think it's because it's personal and people feel threatened by people who would do something that they would be scared to do.
Very true.
It's kind of
100%.
that, like, yeah. So when I moved here and was around people who did the same thing, I was just, I don't like leaving. But at the same time, I did not like being a failure in my band. And I was not doing, like, I could see myself being that guy who's 35, still dragging his wife and his girl, and her girlfriends and your friends out to a show. Just come on, one more time.
Yeah.
This is it.
I did that in my 20s in New York City, for sure.
I just didn't want. I'd seen that guy before and play in someplace, maybe in Tupelo or something, and I was like, I don't want to be that. So I quit the band. I applied to Belmont to get my master's in Spanish.
Spanish.
Yes.
That's not what I was expecting you to say.
Yeah, my mom is Spanish. My family came from Spain to Cuba, and Spanish has always been like a really big thing for me. And then I had a couple people, like a producer and a couple friends who were like, you should give yourself 1 year to get a publishing deal and give songwriting a shot.
They must have seen, let me interject, they must have seen something very special in you because Nashville's known as like the 10-year town. And so,
Yeah.
like, give yourself a year because if you can do it in a year, that's impressive.
It is a
So
10-year
you had to be you're
yeah.
impressing people.
It's a 10-year town, and I think it was just other people at that time. Nashville was on its change, and it was a lot more fun than it is now. And I'm sorry, everybody who moved here in the past few years.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you missed it.
I second that.
And it's better in some ways now, but that thing was so organic and so really cool.
Yeah. It
And
was a really special time here.
now they're like having parties and inviting Kings of Leon to a bespoke party in East Nashville. And it's like, that was just happening. You were just there with these
Yeah.
people. And I think when I heard somebody on the outside just give me permission or belief, however I perceived it, to do it, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to Belmont, and I gave myself 1 year to get a publishing deal. And I remember that time it was it was so stupid because I had 3 jobs. Okay. So I was like, I had a shipment job at Old Navy. I was at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Then I would get off of that and do my first session, songwriting session.
Mm-hmm.
And then I delivered papers, a business profile magazine across 3 counties for my in-laws that had a business for that. And then
Oh my gosh.
I would close at Urban Outfitters at night.
Oh, wow.
And I would go to Whiskey Jam and I just was.
Again, that was the beginning days of Whiskey Jam too.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
Now
So
a
it's
huge,
like
it's its
huge.
own huge corporation now.
I just went to it to see an artist I'm producing, and it was fun.
Yeah.
But it was like, you have to do what to get into this thing? I was like, if I hadn't been there and knew the label people, they gave me a wristband. I'm like, what is this? But that basically what it was there are patterns in everything that you do, and patterns are everywhere. And they're kind of across disciplines too. It's like, I noticed the pattern of when I was in a band that if I had played here and done well, I could use that to book another place somewhere else. Oh, you played at Workplay and you opened up for Need to Breathe. Yeah, and we drew 100 people. Oh, you can play here. This association thing. So I knew, like, if I hustled and got in the right rooms with the right people again and again and again, I could start something. I could start something about me as a songwriter, because in the other pattern in music or in the arts or in life is there are 2 people that succeed. There is, and on the beginning, on the face, it's like, I'll give you an example. I love this one. Say you're a manager of a talent manager at the beginning of one of these 2 careers, and you get the opportunity to manage one of these 2 people. You will if you are that person at that moment in time, you will always make the wrong decision. Heath Ledger or The Rock?
It's like the beginning point of their careers, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Heath Ledger, a savant,
Yeah.
a brilliant, amazing. The Rock, he can raise an eyebrow and he's in the WWE.
Yep.
right.
You're right.
The Rock right now is the highest paid actor in the world.
And he's like a media mogul.
The reason is he's an extremely hardworking person.
Yeah.
There are people with like 5% talent who work themselves to death on that. Mark Wahlberg, these kind of people, they are the longevity people.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that the industry people love to fawn over, like, which is they're brilliant. They're maybe a little antisocial and weird, but like, wow.
There's such
Because
a vibe.
there's 2 reasons.
Talent.
And they'll, oh my
The
God.
raw talent. Yeah.
And you'll see that happen like again and again and again. And so what's interesting about that is that in that situation, those industry people have a place to get credit.
Right. Yeah.
If you're a person who's getting after it and doing it on your own,
You're not worried about the credit.
That, like, the
Well,
A&R
what
people,
value do you have to offer those people if they're working really hard on their own? Right.
And then but if you're like a little antisocial and broken and you can like come over and like nurse them. You see it in the music, like in the vocal coaching world,
All
these
the time,
like basically security blankets for these people.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And what's really, really bad is if you're like a publisher in a business situation, you're basically going to put money down on these people. You're about to take a very messed up individual with antisocial problems and throw them in the music industry
Oh gosh.
and expect it to work out.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I knew I was not that person that people were going to think was great.
Yeah.
I've never been that. I've always just been the person that like would outwork and stay longer.
But you're so self-aware, which is, I think, a big difference in a lot of people. Like, you knew I'm not going to be that person, but most people are like, I am the unicorn. You know, like, super, super creatives, I feel like, don't have that level of self-awareness sometimes where they don't realize that hustle and hard work will outperform and out-succeed raw talent that doesn't work hard 10 times out of 10.
Absolutely. It's
Always.
It's that thing that because when you're talented, everyone loves you, and you never expect it to not be that way. And when it gets to a place where basically everybody's worked up to the same level as you, it becomes about skill and determination and not quitting.
And also, just every other day, there's a new person that people are going to fawn over.
True.
That always happens.
Given.
That always happens in the beginning of a career. You're really excited about the new meat. You know, you're the new kid in school, and then
shiny object syndrome.
Enough to get you out away from the harbor, but then you're out there.
Yeah.
And it's like you're the one winning your sales. What happened? It's like that. It's these patterns are there. I knew that I needed to have a pipeline and like something that people could essentially bet on, because a publishing deal is what? Like it's same thing with it. It's like, here's money against your future earnings.
Yep.
Right.
But it's a huge accreditation in Nashville. It's a huge accreditation anywhere to have a team of people come behind you and help you. You grow exponentially when you have that, and they're working for you. So I just learned, started looking at the patterns of how these things worked. Like, it was crazy. Like, I worked back for my goal, and that was it.
And you studied who?
So smart.
I studied kind of a couple different things. One, they're offering me a publishing deal's money against songs that make money. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting there being like, because the music industry, music in general, is very confusing for people. Mm-hmm. That's why people love social media, because it's optics. I've literally had people say, well, the optics of that aren't good, Kipp. It's a invisible art form. Like it's like it goes through your ears, man. Like, your eyes don't have anything to do with it. Like,
that's so true.
It's an experiential thing. Like, what do the optics of that have to do with the end product, you know? But because of that, it's invisible. People attach credit where they shouldn't. It's really hard to know what's the right thing to do. So you have to kind of ask yourself, how do songs make money? Well, songs make money if they go on the radio or they go on physical albums. And so and then I would say, well, how do songs end up on albums? How do they end up on records? How do they end? And just work back every single step to basically well, how do you do that? Well, you take a shower, brush your teeth, drive to Whiskey Jam, talk to people, and then get 3 sessions and 2 meetings. And I would do that. Like, I would just break it down to the smallest possible step, because it's really, really hard. You can get overwhelmed by the end goal if you don't break it down. So
for sure. Well, and I don't think not anybody, people like you do, but a lot of people don't know that is the strategic way to achieve any goal, is to define very clearly what it is first. Because a lot of times it's just pie in the sky. I want to make it big, right? But I'm here. I want to make it big. Yes. And so it's like we just strive and work really hard up a hill with weight behind our back, trying to get to this nebulous place, but we don't actually have a goalpost. But when you do, and you're specific, then you think, okay, instead of working up to that, I'm going to work backwards from that.
Yes.
And that's strategy. That's how you move the needle.
It's all that. It's tiny little steps taken every day. And I mean, I was like, if I don't get this, then it's over. And I hustled every day and just kind of made that my singular purpose. Yeah. And it was painful. I still think I'm recovering from that. I still think I'm catching up on sleep from that. But what it did teach me was, you hear a lot of these business Gary V's and all these people, 6 months dedicated to anything that can change your life. Yeah. They are not lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Because I can tell you that's exactly what happened. Within 6 months of me doing it the way I was doing it, I started to have little publishing meetings pop up. And once you have one, the other ones are like, oh, he made a move. Like,
totally. Yeah.
And then that kind of worked. And I remember kind of basically, you need to get in the room with artists who are on labels and putting songs out. And that was the time right when streaming started. So there was still a lot of label action here. And you just would go in and know who was working on things, try to get a situation where it's a producer, a writer, and an artist. I was the writer. I absolutely made a conscious decision not to be a producer at that point because it takes a long time and a lot of money. A songwriter, free. You just have to be good with people. You don't even have to do it on your own. It's only a 3-hour commitment.
Yeah.
And
Everybody sign up.
you're done. And I get a lot of, there'll be people like, well, the songwriter does. I'm like, listen, you don't understand. Like, you don't have any skin in the game as far as finances are concerned in the beginning.
Sure.
You are walking in with a couple ideas and other people help you do it, and you leave. Now the producer's sitting there with all the vocals and the gear and the mic selections and all that stuff. It's a much longer lead. Mm-hmm. So I knew I wanted to eventually get to that, but right now I need to get a publishing deal. Mm-hmm. And I just started stacking up cuts on records that were coming out, and the publishers came because I'm not a savant. I'm not particularly talented or special. I just work hard and know patterns. And then when that happened, I could see, oh, they're going to offer me a publishing deal because there's something to offer a publishing deal for. You have a pipeline of credible cuts coming out. Someone's going to have to admin that stuff.
Right.
Someone's going to have to collect on that. It's a no-brainer. Now, when you're a no-brainer, no one will celebrate you when you get signed.
Yeah, right.
You're not fancy.
Yeah.
You're not cool. You're the surest bet they have. And you will always earn, and you will always have a job, but no one celebrates you.
You're like that hound dog on the porch. You just pet it and step over it every day.
It's such an interesting point.
It is it is the most incorrect way to run a business, but it is it is, the music industry is planet Earth. There is the ocean and there is the earth part. They don't even know what's going on. Literally. The industry people, I do not dislike them, but they're not in the same world as the people creating music. Most of them never write a song. They never perform live. They never do any of that. My world is built in grand visions of many years in the future, where a person who works in an office, it's a different incentive structure. It's interesting that they're side by side. But if you're just that grinder, if you're a grinder out there and you know who you are, no one's going to celebrate you.
Yeah.
Until you finally get on the radio and everyone's like, oh, yeah, we knew.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've actually been in a job like that where I was kind of the old faithful consistent one, and I actually got passed over for things like promotions, whereas the savant type was the one that was like, ooh, I saw that person get promoted, and I was like, that sucks.
I know but these things are not unique to us. These are all patterns. I think that's the way I've been able to do it, is just notice well, what's the pattern? Because I didn't have time. I gave myself a year. I can't fail anymore. I hate that feeling. And so when I got into it and got into my publishing deal, people thought I knew a lot more than I did because I had a lot of credits. And it was like, oh, I got a computer. Oh, you're a producer? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. But I'm faking it.
But you are now.
Yes, and that started with it kind of worked back. I got into songwriting and I would give myself basically 6-month increments on learning something new. In the beginning, I was probably really good at lyrical concepts, things that could make people a catchy title, something unique. Worked really hard at that. Then it started turning into full lyric things. Then it turned into melodies. Then it turned into adding little bits. And I got right around the time when the pop music started to incorporate more DJs. They started looking for real songs instead of DJ got us falling in love. It moved to Scared to Be Lonely by Martin Garrix or something. Real songs. I got in on the front end of that. And what I learned was that producers who are working on other things like full records, they don't have the time to sit there and do vocal mixes for you as a top liner or songwriter. So that is how I got into producing, was vocal mixes. And I started getting a lot of cuts that way. I was like, what are these guys doing when they get these fully mixed vocals?
Yeah.
So then I started pretending I was a DJ and started to produce around these a cappella vocal stems. And I was like, this is so much fun. Because vocal producing is where records go to die.
Wait, tell us more about that.
Okay. Jason's been in the studio with me. There's one thing about being a vocal coach, which I think is largely about confidence, breath support, and live in many aspects. Because a lot of the things you teach help people make it 2 hours performing live.
Right.
Yeah.
In the studio, it's completely different.
Well, yeah, for sure.
It's
a different art form.
Don't sing very loud. Sing less loud.
Maybe not even sing at all.
Yeah, so that people can hear your real voice and understand it's you, the uniqueness of your voice. Because the biggest artists in the world are never the greatest singers. The great singers of the pop world were...
Except Celine Dion.
Except Celine Dion.
No, this is what I'm saying. You have a few.
Thank you.
You have Celine, Mariah, Whitney.
Streisand.
You have them. But what makes an artist is an identifiable voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Eddie Vedder and Neil Young and Bob Dylan and all these.
We're not the most amazing vocalists at all.
No, that's not the point. It's like something weird. It's like you can identify them.
Iconic.
So getting people, whether they're great singers or not, to like sing less, get into the mic more, like volume down. You're in front of a microphone. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's a microphone. It amplifies your voice. You don't have to go so loud.
Yeah.
And learning about that, but this really the pattern in anything with audio like that is that it takes an hour to cut a lead vocal, maybe 30 minutes. That process to turn that into a final vocal is like a 2-day process for me. And no one knows that because people leave and then they get this like amazing thing. But behind that is like an insane amount of editing and timing all the things back and cutting S's out and bringing your S's down and getting your timing right, making sure your pitch is right. Like it's this whole process that I've had to like actually break down for myself. I have ADHD. It's like everything's the same volume. So you have to like break everything down into this tiniest little component. And I go follow the same process every time. And when you get to the end of that is so fun to play music against a fully mixed vocal. Yeah. It's like that the production part takes 2 hours. It's that middle part. There's like these points of like in every business or in every creative endeavor, points of creativity and then long periods of nothing creative. It's just like editing. It's like a guy doing video, like you cut this, but it's always the editing part. It's like the chef that gets there at 4:30 in the morning to cut vegetables for a 3-hour service at night, or the fighter who's working like in the gym, learning multiple disciplines in the gym for a 12-week fight camp for a 15-minute fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything is like this moments of creativity. Like there's the explosion of like the idea. And then what happens after that is where everything goes to die. And in the music, it's largely the vocal part. Songwriting, creativity. Cutting the vocal, not very creative. Editing the vocal, not creative. Mixing the vocal, not creative. Production, creative. After creative, mixing. Not really that creative. A little bit. But it's like these learning where you're at in the process and not getting super down.
I think those are really, really valid points laid out very well. Because in this space, as we all know, most people get either defeated or stuck at times because they're just focusing on being creave.
Yeah, that is so.
And then the mind game kicks in, and they're depressed, and they're like, "I got to give up."
Oh, bro, it's this stuff is all patterns. I don't think people understand how much the patterns matter. They're in every discipline. If you're in songwriting, go watch A Chef's Table on Netflix. And you'll learn a lot about music by watching A Chef's Table.
Totally.
Or if you're
when a lot of great producers are
Good
chefs.
cooks. Yeah.
They're good cooks.
There's so many. That's why
Kipp's
they
an
call
amazing.
so true.
Kipp's an amazing. I would eat Kipp's meals over anyone any day.
Oh
Not
my
even
gosh,
kidding.
that is so true. I know
haven't met
another
Ina
band
Garten
that have
yet,
their producer is also like their favorite person to
Yeah.
go to their house, and they do these like masterful. I mean, the guy should
Yeah.
probably have a Michelin star from the meals he makes in his own house.
Yeah.
And they go and eat with him all the time, and I'm always drooling. And then I'm like, wait, he's a producer? What?
Yeah.
He produces your
the
records?
disciplines are the same.
It's crazy.
It's the patterns.
That makes total sense.
It's called musical taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Ooh.
You know?
That's good.
Ba-dum-ching.
Hey. And you studied Max Martin.
Yes.
And Dr. Luke.
Yeah, like that was how I really got into producing. Was every night for like 2 years, I would listen to a playlist of Max Martin and Dr. Luke tracks.
While you were eating, maybe?
No, like just working, like just being, and then I would buy the MP3s, I'd bring them into Logic, figure out the tempo, and I would try to copy them, match them. And I remember sitting super late one night. It was a Katy Perry song off the Prism album. This is how we do. It was like a kind of a third or fourth single. And I was copying it, and my brain exploded. It was one of those moments where you're like, boom, like, boom, Matrix, like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was like freaking out because I was like, that's it. Oh,
You saw the pattern.
saw the pattern. And it's so funny.
And that's one of the biggest records of all time.
Yeah, like that was huge, but it was like that pattern is the pattern.
Yeah.
And what's funny is everyone thinks they're bigger and better than the pattern, but they're not.
Yeah.
Whoa, say that again.
Oh, that's true.
That's good.
Everyone thinks they're bigger and better than the pattern, but they aren't.
Wow.
That is the number one thing I run into in every songwriting session. I will say, what are the songs you're into? Point out the big hits. See the pattern. Start to write the song with the people. Can't do it. It is ego out. It is ego.
Yeah.
It is ego that thinks you're exceptional. It'd be like walking into a boxing gym, being like, yeah, I'm going to be the best boxer, but listen, I am not using a jab.
That's true.
A jab is for sissies.
Yeah.
And your boxing coach will be like, what?
Right. I think you can substitute the word or synonymously, like interchangeably use the word process, right?
Process. It's-
with pattern, and people think they're above the process.
You're
right?
not.
Yeah.
The work.
You're not. It's like, so that pattern is like so identifiable. And when I learned the pattern, I applied it to every song I wrote after that. And it wasn't like every song got cut, but like 50% more did. Like
That's crazy.
that.
Can you tell us about the process?
Yes.
The
So
pattern,
like,
I mean.
if you go and you listen to those big records, which are still the biggest records in the world, and you listen to hits, Michael Jackson was the king of this. It's, you establish your melody, you match the words to the melody. You don't add an extra syllable to it because it will mess up the melody. This is your melody times 2. The human brain loves to complete patterns. You make me feel like I'm living a teenage dream. The way you bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
And then what happens? You do it again.
Yeah.
Why? Because people are like, oh, that pattern that I noticed, and I've seen it on especially Max Martin and his records, it always starts off with like 2 or 3 key elements at the beginning of a song that run the entire way through. So if you listen to Roar, you'll hear the little ding, ding, ding in the beat. That sound is the entire way through.
And I know it's coming when I hear that. Like
Yes.
you know,
It never goes away.
motifs that
Yes.
clue you in. Like, oh, I know what song this is.
Yes. Or like Send My Love to Your New Lover. Or you listen to the 1989 record. It's the same pattern.
Yeah.
The Weeknd, it's like the same pattern in all these different artists. Oh my gosh. But you're like, listen to it, and I will show people this, and they're like, yeah, but I'm like, but. And the thing that I noticed about that really I have, it's like getting a cheat code, but it's almost like if anything's repeatable, like he has been on top of the charts for years. That means it's not an accident.
Yeah.
That means there's a pattern. And if you can identify that and use that pattern and apply it to your own art, that's the goal.
Yes.
That's the
apply
way.
it to your own art piece of it is where people can have their but part of it, because they can they can wrap their own skin around it. They can have their own sound,
Yes.
their own brand, their unique authenticity.
Yes.
Inside of the pattern.
Yes, I mean, it's like when you watch boxers, I love martial arts because they're so similar to music in so many ways. Because you're having to learn multiple disciplines or bring them together in a specific way. You know, country music, a traditional form of country music was like all of those guys were basically playing the same thing, or blues is all playing the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But you've got different blues artists. It's the same, literally the same thing. If you hear the blues, you're going to know what it is. But why is B.B. King different than other people?
Right.
In that way, it's like boxing is like you've got two weapons. They use the same thing, but like the difference between Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard and these people is the expression of themselves through the pattern.
Yes.
It always comes out different. So like, you know, in the beginning, Led Zeppelin
really
was
good.
trying to be an American blues act, but it sounded completely different when it came through them.
Yeah.
I think that's, if you can submit yourself to the pattern,
Yeah.
it will allow you to express yourself without in the most clear way, which is going back to my speech writing thing. You learn these ways to always write speeches. There are multiple ways, but this is always the way. What it allows you to do is be the most effective person at expressing yourself.
Yeah.
Because at the end of every paper that you ever wrote was all these red lines, redundant, too much fluff, like get to the point.
Yeah.
And knowing the pattern and like it helps you see that. Like in cooking, the greatest chefs in the world at every Michelin star restaurant use 5 ingredients or less. It's not a jumbled mess, because if you have too many things going on in your mouth, you can't
Make sense of it all.
If you listen to music, it's the same way. If you've got too many things going on, you can't focus on the right parts.
Yeah.
So I think listening to these records, copying them, learning those patterns have helped me. It's also, too, I think, if you have to have good taste. Like, why is it when people start cooking, they never just learn how to bake a chicken or just grill a steak? It's like, oh my gosh, I found this Thai, Mexican, Indian chicken dish, and it's amazing.
Takes
right?
1,000
And you're like,
ingredients.
what? Who's ever even heard of this thing? It's like, why didn't you just like learn how to like do
Master the basics?
The basics.
Yeah.
And then you learn that once you learn those basics, all it takes is a few little things side to side to like create your own thing. It's
Right.
like spices. Like a baked chicken is a baked chicken until, cumin or, Thai basil get added or something, now it's something else. I think that's huge. In what
I love that. I think it helps people understand the age-old truth, I believe, that discipline and boundaries increase creativity, not diminish it.
Yes. I say, look, chaos is fine.
Right.
All right. I'm okay
That's
with
what you're into.
I'm okay with chaos because music is a little bit like that. But I like to have chaos between this time and this time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So and also, music is not chaos. Music is order.
It is, because it's like math, and math is order. And patterns make me think of what is the, I bet you know this Fibonacci sequence?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Like that all things in life
Yes.
come back down to it.
Yes.
It's actually incredibly, go down the Google rabbit hole, just Google the Fibonacci sequence and it'll blow your mind of life. But like math, science, life in and
Yes.
of itself all kind of center around this idea of patterns.
It's patterns. It's a song. Music is not a what or a where or a how. It is a when. Okay? So it's not, and then you hear somebody sing. It is. And it's not. But it's multiple layers of things happening all at once. It's not chaos. It's like the rhythm section has to match with this thing, and this thing has to match with this thing, and it all happens then and it's gone. What does the universe mean? What does that literal word mean?
I don't know.
The one song.
Oh.
The universe means
The universe.
Oh.
Look at the root word of that.
right? That was a big.
Who invited this guy? He's brilliant.
No, but literally,
who hired these two jokers?
No. But this is the stuff this is the stuff I'm absolutely passionate about.
Yeah,
That's
for
really
sure.
cool.
It's
That's
multiple layers of things happening all at once, and it's always now. It's always in the present moment. That's
You're
why
right.
music is an experience.
Totally.
Which goes back to the live moment you're talking about being so important.
I think that these things, and I know it's a deluge of stuff coming from me, but that's how I am all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
We're experiencing Kipp in real life.
But like
in real life, that's what this episode's going to be called.
I think I just get really disappointed or sad that people in my art form are so distracted by things that aren't it.
Yeah.
When you realize, dude, you're missing out on the thing.
Yeah.
This is deep, guys. Like
It is
Yeah.
deep.
it's so human. It's so special. It's so unique. It's like, and if you have these patterns or you can see things that allow you to not get distracted and always go back to your process, always go back when you get tired. Look,
Yeah.
the process allows you to work in misery. Okay. That's really what I have come to find out.
That's fascinating to think about.
If you
but you're
just
right.
stick to it and you
Yeah.
know, if I just get to the end of this vocal, it'll get better.
Yeah.
If I just get to the end of
Yeah.
this, it'll get better. If I just do this
good.
workout, it'll get better.
Right.
If I just do it and stick to it, it's so magical to see what happens. And I
Yeah.
just feel like a lot of things get lost in the distraction
For sure.
and not knowing what your core thing is. What are you trying to do? Like you guys, like we're all supporting artists. I am trying to make artists sound better than anybody else, to create an experience for someone. At the other end of this going into their ear is an experience. From the lyrics to the production itself, that experience. And what are the things I need to do to make that experience the best? That's the point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like going to the restaurant.
Yes.
Going to the show.
Yes.
Any of it.
Any of it. Someone somewhere had a process. If it's McDonald's, that French fry hits
Yes.
that mouth.
Oh, it
Somebody thought about
sure
that experience.
does.
Like,
Yep.
what is
Yeah.
the best way to make that happen?
Oh, and that's, I mean, yes, it's a repeatable process. It's one that, like it or not, whether it's going to give you heart attacks or not is besides the point. The point is that this is like multi-billion-dollar corporation
Yeah.
that has had success because of a repeatable process. And everybody knows this is how you flip this burger, this is how you fry these
Yes.
fries to make them taste always on point.
And I know that people don't think that's art, but
Right.
it is.
And that is absolute
It is
creativity.
like, it's like that.
Having that excellence.
And I think that is a thing that with me, like, it's always the process. Every single song I do, no matter who, what genre, which I do about 5, it doesn't matter who it is, if they're paying me nothing, $10 or $10,000. Every single song goes through the exact same thing every single time.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
cheating. There's no corners cut. There's none of that, because at the end of that, that is coming back on me.
Of course.
Yeah, it's why you're dependable and people want to come and work with you, is because you
I
can
hope
create
so.
those kinds
Yeah.
of experiences and products for people. And
Yeah.
I talk to singers about this kind of thing a lot, is like you have to put in the reps, all the training in order to be consistent and buy back the opportunity for spontaneity. I always
Yeah.
point to jazz musicians as the masters at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear, if you go to like a jazz club and you're listening to these guys and they're just riffing forever, it just feels like this one long spontaneous moment. That is because they know the ins and outs of theory like nobody
And they're making it
else.
up on the spot.
Yeah, but,
It's
but like
it's not
They have to be good.
Yeah.
They
It's
can-
not like they wrote
yeah.
that and
Yeah.
right,
practiced it
but
10
because
times.
it sounds so improvisational, we just think, oh, that's just art, right? It's all just this sort of like off the cuff, spontaneous. No. It's because they know theory, they know the notes, they know everything better than any other musician out there, and that's why they've
Yes.
been able to afford themselves the ability to be that creative.
Yeah, I
Because of
mean,
that process.
It's the time. Like I say this, the best artist I've worked with, from if it's guys in boy bands like Nick Carter or Natasha,
Whom you've worked with.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, or Natasha Bedingfield, or people that you just meet that have these just evergreen songs that everyone's always going to remember. One thing I've noticed about all these people is, one, they really like music, but the thing that our musical artists will generally spend the least amount of time on in their career is the music itself.
Yeah. It's a sad fact.
It's like you will
doing it.
You will, and every artist that I've found that's really good is the one who just gives 10% time and money to their art. Just a little 10% extra. Like, that changes everything. That makes you go from good to great. Just probably 10%. Because an artist will get distracted by everything else other than their music. But if you look at Taylor Swift, that girl loves music.
Yeah.
She loves being in the studio.
Yeah.
Charlie XCX has come off tours just because I just want to be in the studio. People, they love being creative and being in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is a pattern, please emulate the greats. Like, that's what I've always thought. Like, spend the time investing in your craft, because when the opportunity shows up, like you said, it makes the most out of that.
Right.
Instead of trying to play catch up. I mean, that for me is like a big one. Just please spend the time.
Don't let opportunities find you ill prepared.
No.
Right.
That's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
And
it's not sustainable.
No.
You might be a flash in the pan. You might go viral for a second, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible way to go through the rest of your life, knowing like I wasn't prepared in that moment and it all went away.
Yeah.
I think that's the distraction right now, is
Yeah,
that most
it
people
is.
want to become viral for viral sake.
Yep.
And it's they want to use music to get that.
Yes.
And I will tell you what, the music gods do not like that. They
Right.
do not like that.
Do you really want to peak off a 90-second reel anyway? You know, and then it's like, that was it.
The real artists that are out there will never, they'll just use the platforms, whatever it is, to their advantage to promote what they're doing. But
Right.
yeah, it's harder to notice. Like I say it in music, is like the hardest thing in music is understanding the difference between an opportunity and a distraction. Because on the face, they can look the same.
Sure.
And that's kind of what you're talking about, is like when you put the work in, you know what's a distraction.
Yeah.
Way better than someone who's just trying to look for a moment, you know?
Yeah. Kipp, this has been crazy great.
I was like,
We're gonna have to have you back. I know we could keep going and going and going. But yeah, would you come back sometime?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
And if there's something you want to know about specifically, besides just my ethos and just, because, you know, I'll just go like this.
Yeah, totally.
Would love if anyone has any questions about stuff specifically in the studio or work out a scenario or something. I'm happy, because honestly, there's probably a process or a pattern or an experience I've had with it that I do not mind telling other people.
Well, and I told Shelby that earlier over breakfast, was that you are actually a great mentor and coach in what you do. And a lot of producers have that ability, but they don't take that upon themselves to do.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we became even closer friends, going to Norway, doing a lot of creative camps together and a music expo that we would do every year. And so this ability to take what you've learned through all your studies of patterns and history and music and musicality, everything, and then the experience you put into it, and the hours and hours and hours, like you have an amazing ability to just pass that on to people. And so
you know the reason why?
Why?
I promise the music industry is so miserable and so awful in so many ways that I was at the beginning of my start of this whole crazy journey, and I was like, anything you learn, tell other people so they don't have to go through it. And it's not because they're not gonna, most of the time people don't listen to me anyways, because that's just how people are. But if you can like save one, you can kind of create a better world in the future.
Absolutely.
Like, I want you and everyone in here to feel good.
Yes.
And to be happy. Because when you are in and do well, because when you're around a lot of people who are doing well and feeling good, your life is better.
Yeah.
I mean that, man.
Yeah, that's so true.
And we're all
So
about
true.
not being gatekeepers. So how can the people find you if they do want to reach out and ask you some questions?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Quill Made It. It's KWIL, Quill Made It.
We'll have it posted.
And, you know, you can hit me up there, or if you know these guys, y'all can hit
us
Vocalab
up.
up.
Yeah.
And
We'll have you come back and we'll do like a more like hands-on production kind of talk too.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. And pontificate
So people
more.
can hear a little bit more about your, catalog of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for being here, buddy.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time, I'm Jason Catrone.
And I'm Shelby Rollins.
And this was Kipp Williams, the one and only. Until next time, we'll see you guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Vocal Lab podcast. Ready to join the top ranks of the music industry? Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more first-class conversations that make the extraordinary your new ordinary. Until next time, keep striving for your top note.